Hey guys, it's Cam here. Welcome back to the build room. And in this week's episode, we're busting out the paint stripper and we're stripping this 1977 RA28 Celica down to bare metal. And then Doofa here is going to show you his shiny metal ass. So stick around and check it out. All right, so in the last episode, we had a massive win. We finally got violet crumbles on the rotisserie, and you can see it behind me upside down at the moment. And if you look a little bit further up the driveway, you can see Doofa waiting in the wings ready to come in. Now, the main problem was there just wasn't enough room in the garage. So between that episode and now, we've done a heap of work and we've managed to reorganize the garage in a way that's hopefully going to give me heaps more space. And what I've done is I've got the majority of the stuff out that I could, and what was left I've strategically placed in here to optimize space so that we can still have violet crumbles in the garage and protected, but we can also get Doofa in here and have enough room around it to get all the stuff that we need to done. So as a quick reminder, this is what it looked like at the end of the last episode once we got everything cleared out, but all of the stuff still in the position that it was before. And then after a whole bunch of cleaning and moving around, this is what it looks like now. So yeah, it may not look that different to you guys, but trust me, it is. So along this wall here, we've moved the toolbox, we've still got the compressor and the gurney and stuff where it was before, and some bins and things like that. But the thing that you'll notice along this entire wall is that the shelving that was there is gone, and everything that's left is on wheels and can easily be moved out, and there's method to that madness. Then as we come down further, we've got the racking, we've put both of these together, we've got all of the engines across there. I'm starting a nice collection. We've got the 18RC, we've got the 3 18RGs, 3T GTE, 1G GZE, and then a GT550 motorbike engine. A lot of the parts that I've collected here for not just violet crumbles, but also Doofa. Radiators, a few bits and pieces. Frankie is again down the end, and we've moved the sandblasting unit right to the bottom, and I cleaned up my old DeWalt sign, which I will hang up when I get a second. And then here we've got the workbench. This still needs a tidy. I haven't quite finished. It's under the aircon, so I'll be nice and cool in summer and warm in winter. And then all of the cabinetry, which was originally on the wall behind me, is now on this wall here. The reason I did swap the cabinets from one side to the other is because the shelving is obviously much deeper, and the space between the pillar here and the wall is really the premium space in the garage, so I wanted to waste as little of it as possible. It'll make sense a lot when you see where violet crumbles is going to go. This area here is the main working area, so what I wanted to be able to do is eventually spray paint Doofa in here, and that's going to require moving all of this stuff out, and I'll be able to put the car in the center, and then I'll have a good 1.5 meters on either side to walk around. It's really important to have enough space when you're trying to paint a car in a garage. It's not an ideal space to start with, so you want it as dialed in as possible. Anyway, that's enough talking from me for now. Let's get violet crumbles in and up against that wall, and then we'll get Doofa in here and we'll check out exactly what we're working with. And that's about as tight as we're going to get it. You can see we're basically hard up against that shelving through there. And height-wise, we just fit under that beam, which is 1.9 meters high. And then the crowning glory is just to throw a cover on this, and you barely know it's there. So now, let's get Doofa inside. All right, so what are the priorities? Now, I've talked about in the last episode an impending deadline, and I've also talked about wanting to protect this thing a little bit more. So there are two main objectives for this next portion of the build. The way the paint is now, it's starting to peel back in some areas which I'm really concerned about, and there's some cracking and mazing that's gonna let water in. And as you know, if you let water in through the paint, it's gonna start deteriorating the surfaces underneath and the metal, and we're really gonna end up with a lot of damage in a very short period of time. So the number one priority is to make sure that this thing gets protected and can handle another 5 to maybe 10 years in the sun before I get around to then finally fully stripping this down and doing that rotisserie build that I talked about in the previous episodes. So yeah, a quick fix to protect this thing moving forward, and also something that's reasonable enough for me to take the car out to car shows and other events so I can meet the car community a little bit and start getting more involved in that, because I really enjoy being out at those things. But it is a lot better if you can take a car of your own. And that brings us to the looming deadline, which is Toyotas in the Park for 2022. Now that's an event I've been to for the last couple of years. I really like the crowd that show up to that. They're all Toyota enthusiasts, which is my jam. They all seem to be really nice people. They're interested in builds. They're interested in showing you what they've done. It's actually a really nice community, and I want to be a part of it this year. But since I've sold the Supra, I don't have a car to take anymore. So rather than just go as a spectator, I want to get Doofa in the condition that I would be reasonably happy taking it there and letting people have a look at it. Problem is, Toyotas in the Park is less than a month away. It is 28 days. So today is September the 18th and Toyotas in the Park is on the 16th of October. So literally 4 Sundays from today, this thing's got to be at a show. So what does that mean for the project? It means we're probably going to have to adjust things on the fly to get this thing done. And today we're going to start by stripping as much of the paint off as possible so we can see what we're actually dealing with. So let's start off by having a look at the tools that we're going to use. All right, so we're going to try 2 types of stripping today, potentially. The first one is chemical stripping of paint, and the second one is abrasive. So I've got a couple of different types of paint stripper here. So we'll have a shootout and we'll see which one of these actually works the best. One of the advantages of them is you avoid dust. Now, I've got the aircon running at the moment back there. So abrasively stripping an entire car and having all that dust in the air going through the aircon unit is no bueno. So we're gonna try stripping first and see how it goes. So yeah, we're gonna start with the bonnet. I'll probably do this side here, and I'm gonna split it into the 3 components. And what we're gonna do is key the surface first so that the paint stripper can get through the layers of paint, because basically it's gotta get underneath the paint to lift it up. We'll put the 3 different types on, and then we're gonna cover it in plastic. We're just gonna use Glad wrap. And the reason you do that is just to stop it evaporating so that it has maximum soak time while it's active. And we'll just do that on a time lapse. And so I'll try half the bonnet, and then we'll come back, and if it's working well, we'll do the other side. If not, we might be resorting to plan B. And plan B is just a strip it disc. These are 125mm strip it discs. These ones are just from Bunnings. So yeah, I'm gonna set up the camera now and we'll start on the far side of the bonnet. Alright, so definitely mixed results there. Let's talk about this one first. This was probably the most successful using the Bunnings branded poly stripper. Overall, pretty well stripped except for the edges, and on the edges I was a bit hesitant to sort of gouge them too heavily. So that kind of makes sense. And this area here, which if you can see the pink underneath, it looks like that is a coating of spray putty or something like that. And obviously spray putty is slightly different to paint, as body filler is different to paint as well. So look, to be honest, I wasn't expecting much from any of the paint strippers, so this one is actually pretty good. It is the original paint as well, and that's something to notice. There's not multiple layers, so areas like this that have got at least 2 coats might stand up a little bit differently. We'll see. This one here, which was the Anchor Professional one-shot multi-layer paint stripper. Can't really test multi-layer except for in these areas and at the front, and not the best results. It is a lot thicker. Maybe it's an older can or something like that, but it should probably be better than the poly at the vertical panels because it'll hang on a little bit better. And it did strip this area really quite nicely. It didn't look like it was stripping well under the plastic, but then when I lifted the plastic up, it basically just peeled off as one piece with it, which was quite good. Again, struggled in areas where there was spray putty and body filler. So slightly less than that one overall on a horizontal surface, but probably better on a vertical surface. This section here, which was done with the GPI bodywork stuff, really not impressed by this at all. For starters, I didn't realize it was going to be black, which obviously just makes it a little bit easier to see, which is good. I was certainly less likely to not see a section of it and put my hand in it or rub my elbow on it or anything like that. This stuff really does sting if you leave it on your skin for a while. But apart from the fact that this area has obviously got a lot of filler in it, and that was spray putty, in this area, it really didn't penetrate that well. So I'm not sure what's going on. It could be that this product has gone off in the can. Like I said, I bought these all together except for that can. So the poly's the freshest, and those were bought at the same time. Maybe they were on the shelf for a long time. I may have undone the cap and used it and contaminated it, and that's why it's gone black or something. I can't remember. I've probably had both of those for, I would say maybe 3 months, 3 to 6 months. So not a crazy amount of time to have in the garage, but that's what we have there. So where am I going to go to now? I'm not going to waste my time anymore on the GPI stuff. I might look into that and see whether it is supposed to be clear or brown, but really not impressed with it and don't want to waste the time and get the mess. So I'm going to pull the masking tape now, and I'm going to go over this one again, probably with the Anchor one shot, and I'll see if I can get through the putty and get through more of the primer. So I'll do that quickly and we'll talk about that and then figure out how we're gonna tackle the other side. All right, so this is what it looks like after the second coat. Pretty good. Really the only places that haven't come up, a small area there, that must just be a furphy. Again, just around the edges where, like I said, I didn't want to layer it on too much, and when you try to layer it on, it tends to go down the gap anyway. It's probably peeling the paint off through there as well, but that doesn't matter. So the two main areas are obviously the bit that's been repaired. I actually think this might be an isolator or something like that under it. It could be a pink spray putty, but it seems very hardy. And here where there is the majority of the body filler on the nose. So rather than keep trying to put layer upon layer upon layer and Sara Lee the paint stripper on, I think it's time to get aggressive with the abrasive. I want to basically see how bad that dent is the front. I don't think this bonnet's going to be a write-off. It just seems weird that there's such a large patch of filler. It's probably had a repair there, but geez, that is a lot of area to have thick filler on. This is not thin. I've already, gone at it with a spatula and dug into it fairly heavily. So yeah, weird repair. And then this one, the dent, there's a dent, there's body filler in it. There's also rust around it where the paint was rubbed off and it was exposed to the elements. So obviously paint stripper is not going to fix that. So what I'm going to do is take the grinder with a stripper disc and run over the rest of this side, and then we can see the extent of the damage and figure out whether it's even worth stripping that side. All right, and all the paint is gone, and I've gone over it with just the Dynabrade and some 80 grit stuff just to basically knock the top off it, so it's a little bit easier for you guys to see where the damage is and where it isn't. It also provides a nice surface for paint. So this area came up really good. This dent area here, you can actually get to from the back, so I'm not really sure why they just didn't panel beat it. They just filled it up, but it was good. A little tip, if you've got heavy surface rust like this, put your rust converter on and then lay some Glad wrap over it, just like I did with the paint stripper, because that will stop it evaporating and it'll work a little bit better. So we've cleaned the majority of this rust off, and I will go back and give that another go before we throw some primer over the top. This front area looking not so neat. And then this front area is not so sweet. Better than I expected, but unfortunately that area there is covered, so there's no way to get to it without removing the skin of the entire bonnet and flattening that out. So this is probably going to have to be worked with the dent puller, I think, and I'll just be very careful so I don't lift the surrounding area. But overall, it's much better than I expected. I have no idea why they needed that much filler at the front. Really, a lot of overkill there. But the main thing is there's no rust through here. There's a small amount of rust where they've done the repairs, but generally speaking, you know, I was expecting large pieces of sheet metal missing out of the front here. So I'm really happy with that. And with that in mind, I'm going to strip this side and we'll be able to see how good the whole bonnet is. No need to do a montage for that. Again, we're just gonna, all right, so bonnet is now completely stripped, full bare metal, and it's looking pretty good. Luckily, this damage here didn't really extend too much over. There's a few really minor marks in the front there, really nothing to worry about at all. There is a little pin dent here and a slightly larger dent up there, but that sits out in open air. I can get to the back of that, and I'm pretty sure I can get to the back of this too, so no issues. They ended up taking a couple of layers of paint stripper each, and I've sort of been working on the process. I did also start stripping the roof. The good news is on the roof, there's only 2 layers of paint. The original layer, and obviously the primer underneath it, and then a new layer of primer and the green paint, this green paint. So not too much to clean off here, and basically what I'm finding is 2 coats gets the majority off like this, and then any of the really stubborn areas I can run through with a stripper disc and sort out. Absolutely no rust or dents in the roof other than this one here. Should get close up on. Now that is really interesting because that is body filler over bare metal, and it's something that I've always questioned whether or not it's a good idea, and I think it's heavily dependent on the products you use. But you can see where the dent is, there's rust all around it underneath the bog. And some of this is stripped up, it's come up with the scraper. But there was rust underneath that body filler, which I'm not super keen on. So there is a couple of schools of thought. A lot of people say bog should only go onto bare metal and then you should prime over the top. I think that thinking is changing now as the paint systems evolve. And nowadays a 2K etch is suitable to go underneath body filler, and that's probably the approach that I'm going to take on this when we get around to painting it. Now, a couple of things. I have been gouging this with a screwdriver in order to get that penetration. You can see there's little minor gouge marks, but they're so small you can't even feel them. So just want to be careful with the amount of pressure you put on with a screwdriver, obviously. And what I am going to try on some of the other areas is I'm going to try like a 40 grit sandpaper just to key the surface and see if it will penetrate that way. That's obviously probably the quicker and easier way to do it, but previously when I've tried paint strippers, that hasn't been as effective. So I'm going to try it again, and I've also got a new stripper to try. So the bonnet and the roof so far have consumed about 2 litres of stripper. So it's a pretty intensive process in terms of materials. So I have got a KBS product now, paint stripper, so we're bringing a 4th vendor into the competition, but I do like KBS's products in general, so I thought I'd give the paint stripper a go. It's not $110, only bought me 3 litres, so what's that, like 36.66 a litre? So yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be a lot better than the other products, but I will tell you how that goes at the end, and I'll also tell you how we go with the keying the surface with a screwdriver versus using the sandpaper. Now, I'm going to go through and strip the entire car. I don't think that's a process that you guys want to see, or you want me to check in after every panel. It's a bit pointless. There are a couple of things though that I do need to do. Now, I'm going to try and leave the majority of the trims and things on, and I'll explain why at the end of the episode. I will probably pull things like the vents off, and I might pull the rear tail lights out and things like that so I can get access and avoid getting paint stripper on these delicate surfaces. So I don't want to damage any of that because it's all in pretty good nick. Paint stripper won't do anything to this stainless, so they're pretty comfortable there. But the other thing that we need to do is to change this door out. So this is garbage. Like I said, we've got the spare in the back. So we're going to put the new door here. We'll strip it down to bare metal, get it on the car, and we will have stripped the entire rest of the car as well. And then I'll give you a look at what it looks like purely in bare metal, which should be a pretty fun sight. So yeah, from here on out, I'm expecting probably another 8 to 10 hours of stripping here based on the speed it's taking me for these. If the process works better with that stripper, maybe that'll be dropped. But I will keep a tab on the times and let you guys know as well. So yeah, I'm gonna get stuck into it and I'll see you guys in a minute. All right, we are done. prepare yourselves to see Doofa completely naked. So, how did we go? I'm going to do a quick walk around the car now. We'll have a look at what was good and what was not so good. The bonnet we've already gone over. There was good bits and bad bits. This fender here, we already really knew what it was like. It was in excellent condition because it was that new old. Is not that great, to be honest. You can see at the top, it's all coming apart here. It's rusted through on the back. It's had some accident damage down here and, you know, not the best pull that I've ever seen. It's got rust at the bottom of the doors, and on the back side of the door, it's rusted out as well. So this isn't great. I am looking for another door, but yeah, this is on the car for now, and I'll have to make do if I need to. Moving back to this quarter panel, this one's not too bad. Pretty much perfect for the top third. All of this front area is good. There's a couple of little dents. There's a line dent here where something's run across it, and there's some rust starting down the bottom. You can see down there, but that's not even a patch on Violet Crumble, so I'm not too worried about that. The rear here, I ran into a big area of filler, and I was really quite worried, but once I got it off, there's a repair there, but it's not bad. It looks like it's been hammered and dollied from the back, as it should be, and the filler was thick by today's standards, but not really that thick if you think about this being hit 20 years ago and being thrown into a panel shop to be repaired. The hatch. The hatch is a thing of beauty. There is not a single problem with this at all. A little bit of surface rust on the corners, but that's all coming out. There's no rust on the back of it either, and it even looks like the windscreen seal, what that covers, will be good too, so I'm pretty stoked with that. This quarter panel here is absolutely awesome. Apart from the dent that we knew we had going in, because this is obviously very obvious, and that little bit of rust, there's basically no issues through here. It's almost like a new panel. I did take these vents out. They're actually just sitting in there loose at the moment. So we've well and truly cleared all the paint out from under them. The roof, last time you saw this had paint and stuff all over it, but again, with all that paint gone, pretty much perfect. Just that little dent there, and it is so small, and I'm actually going to try and pull that out with the dent puller. And then this tiny little piece of pinhole rust here. So I'll probably just replace a section about that big, and we'll be done there. The A-pillars, they were good on both of these. I took this aerial out, cleaned it up, put it back. You can still see the original brazing marks, which is pretty cool. Rust around the bottom of the scuttle panel, rust here, and a little bit of rust on that corner over there. But they're all things we knew about going into this. This door, however, which I thought was good, is not great. You can see this has a riveted in patch panel, just like the other door. So this is really thin. It looks like they've cut an olive oil can up or something and rolled it into this shape. But yeah, it's riveted on. It's no good. It's gonna have to be replaced. The good news is the bottom of the door is pretty good until you get to here and another plate welded in. And there's this blue and yellow paint all over it. It literally looks like a vinyl wrapped oil can or something like that. It's very, very thin. I would say maybe 0.3, 0.4 mil. So yeah, not great, but overall, I think it's a serviceable door. I can fix this. And on the back side, there's not much rust in any of the supporting structure either, so pretty good there. Now this guard is not the black and silver one that was on here before. That's sitting over in the corner there. That actually looks pretty good from the back, but I just was a little bit gun shy after seeing some of the other areas. So I grabbed this one, which was in bare metal, except for an area here, which was covered in bog. But from the back, it only looked like a very small dent. Now, in actual fact, what's happened is, if we get up close, I don't know if you guys can see this, but there's these little square patterns, like someone's been hitting this with a, like a meat tenderizer. So this has obviously been caved in at some point, and someone's used like a heavy duty slapper file or something, I don't know, but this area here has been extensively pulled back out. In addition to that, it's also got rust that's been cut out up here, rust that's been cut out of the bottom down here, and then this lip has also been bent and it's been hammered back into place. So this guard's a bit disappointing, bit of a waste of time as well, stripping it and materials. So I'll try this one out and see how we go. Hopefully it'll be better. In both cases, with this guard and that door over here, there is the possibility that I can use parts of this and parts of that original door to repair both of these, and that might give me some salvageable panel. But at the end of the day, this is a 1977 car, it's 45 years old, and to be honest, the real bad damage is all on removable panels. So I'm pretty happy with it. So yeah, let's park this for a second. I'm gonna give you guys time to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you like what you're seeing here. And we'll come back in a second and we'll talk about all of the things that I've learned through this process and tips that you can use if you're gonna be stripping paint and dealing with this stuff yourself. So stick around. Okay, so that was a pretty productive one. Apologies straight out. This has been a really talky episode, so I'm gonna try and keep this wrap up quick. Firstly, how did the KBS aircraft stripper go? Absolute garbage. Yeah, probably the worst of all four. So expensive and not particularly good, at least the way I was using it. I did it according to the instructions, but whatever. So out of all of those strippers, my recommendation is if you're doing something like this, just go down to Bunnings, get the cheap poly stripper, and you'll be good to go. And you probably need about 8 litres of stripper, so it's about 150 bucks worth Australian in paint stripper, so not a huge cost considering the effect that you can get. Also, in terms of the keying with a screwdriver versus grinding with the strip it disc, and also using the 40 grit sandpaper to scuff the surface, keying it with a screwdriver is definitely the best result that I saw. The 40 grit was pretty good, and the 40 grit combined with running the strip it disc over it a couple of times, probably almost as good. But the problem with that process is that you're creating a whole bunch of dust, which is kind of the thing that I was trying to avoid here. So yeah, look, if you're not confident in running a screwdriver up and down your car without denting or gouging the steel too much, then maybe stick with the 40 grit, run the strip it over it, and just deal with the fact that you've got some dust. So then there's a question of how long did this actually take? So I said 8 to 10 hours in addition to what I'd already spent, and that turned out about right. I reckon I probably got 12, maybe 14 hours. I did run into a couple of instances where it took a long time to grind through stuff, so that probably slowed me down. So if you didn't have the sorts of repairs that I've seen on this, maybe 12 hours. We have jumped forward in time. It was Sunday when I started this process, and I managed to get about 4 hours of work done. That was about it. And then I have done a couple of hours after every night this week, and it is now just before midnight on Friday, and this episode has to go out first thing tomorrow morning. So editing is basically what I'm going to be doing for the next 3 or 4 hours. And then there was the situation with the panels. So I'm going to strip the other fender that we had for this side and just see how it goes. And I'm also going to look for 2 doors. Yes, I can probably patch those, but I am running short on time before Toyota's in the park. And to be honest, I need more doors anyway. Violet Crumbles is bound to have garbage doors, just know it. And also, I've still got the Celica, so realistically, having a couple of extra doors is probably a pretty good thing right now. And then finally, why didn't I pull it completely apart and save myself some hassle? And the answer to that is really centered around Toyotas in the park. You know, I could have pulled both front and rear screens and got easier access. I could have pulled all the accessories off and left it in pieces and started the next step. But firstly, I wanted to get a kick-ass photo for the thumbnail for this episode, and I did take a couple of other ones while I'm at it. I'll throw them up now. But secondly, if I stripped it all down, I would have to fully prime, paint, and finish this thing off before we could get it back out into the streets. And to be honest, what I see behind me here is actually really quite interesting. I've waffled on about it a lot in this episode, but there is a lot to see here in terms of the prep of a car and just the way they're put together in general. And I don't want to cover that up for Toyotas in the park. So we are going to take it in bare metal. Now that doesn't mean I'm going to take it just as it is now. We've got 3 weeks to do a bunch more stuff to make this better. I plan on repairing as much of the rust as I can, and then we're gonna do some other cool things so that when this does show up, it is actually worthy of people's attention. But yeah, I'll explain that to you in the next episode. So yeah, lastly, before I go, I just wanna say, I think that this is the final episode for you guys to just put a comment below and get in the draw to win one of the TBR shirts. Check them out at shop.thebuildroom.com. Figure out the one you want, and we're going to be drawing 10 lucky winners just before the next episode, so about 6 days from now. And that just leaves us with the usual stuff. So if you're new to the channel, I'm going to put the full Violet Crumbles RA28 series up here, and I'll also put the whole Doofa series down here. So that's all for today, but I just want to say thanks, and I'll see you next time on the Build Room. Bye for now.